Avery Howard here with DB to do a spring game preview. Feels like just yesterday we were breaking down games in the fall, and although I don't think the outcome is necessarily what the coaches, program, and the fans wanted to see, I think there's no doubt that there was steps forward from last season. So I want to talk about why, and if you've noticed this too, but why the excitement and the energy has heightened with the outcome that we saw with the season ending in November to this spring game now. We know Nebraska fans show out for the spring game. But why do you feel like there's been a heightened sense of excitement and energy for this one this year?
I think kind of the easy answer, and I'll get away from it, but to get it out of the way is I think the quarterback play. Right. Sure. Everybody wants to see quarterback competition and where Nebraska is with that, especially when you have such a highly touted recruit and another quality couple of local guys battling for the job. I think that's the easy part. But underneath the surface, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's year 2. You're hearing a lot of common language. You know, Coach Rule and his staff has a track record of getting better. Mm-hmm. And I think people want to see it because you can actually you hear what he says. You see how he's built the roster. You can actually kind of envision some depth. They're getting some more options. So those things are exciting. Like, when you can list off multiple good players at a position, it can get you excited because it puts a practical application to what he's been talking about since he's been here. And so with the fan base, it's like, okay, I want to see, like, wow, we could really play eight D linemen. Mm. Oh my gosh, so how many? We have more offensive linemen.
Right.
We have depth, although it's not healthy. I'd use them as an example. At the running back spot. Mm-hmm. Oh, we have so many young guys at wide receiver. So I think people want to see the practical application of what he's always talking about in terms of building depth.
Yeah. I probably could have guessed your answer as the quarterback position, so we'll kind of get over the first point here. But is there something that the coaches can look at this weekend on Saturday, even though it sounds like all quarterbacks are going to get basically the same reps as they usually always do?
Yeah.
How can the staff walk away saying that was a positive performance from that room? What will they be looking for in the quarterback play?
Yeah, so from a coach's perspective, they're going to be looking at, route progression. Did the ball go with what the coverage dictated? There's going to be maybe some drops or some incompletions or a ball got away from a quarterback, but what was the intent? Right, that's something that they'll know because of the route concepts or getting into and out of plays pre-snap. What does that look like? How's the communication going in the headsets? Mm-hmm. Is it smooth? Are you understanding? How much talking am I really having to do with you before we turn you loose? So those are the things that we can't really see, but that they'll be looking for. Well, what we can actually see, it'll be mechanics, footwork, the actual outcomes, completions. Was it a good ball? Was it on target? And most importantly, because I think this is the big one, did they take care of the football?
Yeah, right.
And I think first and foremost, if they take care of the football, that's going to give you a leg up. They just can't. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
For as good as you can be in some other facets of the game, if you turn the ball over, you just can't function at a high enough level. And so I think taking care of the football, especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
You just cannot turn the ball over when you have a chance potentially to get points. Which quarterbacks take care of the football?
Yeah, that is a good point. I feel like I remember us talking about that specifically after the spring game last year, that was the one red flag, you could say.
Yeah, and it reared its ugly head throughout the season.
Yeah, and, you mentioned this a few weeks ago, and you reminded me just now speaking about it. Will it be visible if we can see how these young quarterbacks communicate with their O-line in this spring game?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. For me, like a cheat code, like what I would look at is how quickly you can get in and out of the huddle in terms of, it's always the patented, hand to the helmet, make sure I'm hearing it right. And then how they carry themselves to the line of scrimmage, right? Are we looking around? Are we still communicating post getting to the line of scrimmage?
Or is it demanding?
Right.
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah.
And then pit that against or in addition to how quickly we get plays off, right? If I look as though I'm audibling or I want motion, am I authoritative? How does it look? Like that can kind of let you know what command looks like. because all the other 10 guys may not get it, but as long as you do and you're the one being graded and you can get other guys, that's part of the job, right? And it's very difficult. You, as a coach, you want guys to be able to have a play called, line up, everybody get it, and it goes off without a hitch. But we know, we see it in the NFL. Hey, I need motion here. Hey, where sometimes quarterbacks have to take over because they see something different. Those are kind of some of the little things you're looking for.
Yeah. I said we moved past the quarterback, so we're going to do that. Looking at other positions and players, what groups are you most looking forward to in this? I know it's a controlled scrimmage, but what are you looking for?
So I'm going to get away from O-line, D-line, which would normally be my answer.
Right.
I'm going wide receivers and DBs.
Yeah.
You know, we see a lot of highlights come out in terms of practice, and guys are getting vertical in the passing game, and it's like, wait. Who's covering these guys, right? That's like this. It's new. It's we're seeing chunk plays in the passing game, but as a defense, you also don't want to give those up. So it's like battle of the young guys. For every Fedone, Banks, experienced guy, you have one on defense like Gifford or Singleton, who we won't see on Saturday. Yeah. But it's the young guns. It's the Nations, the Charles, the Lloyds. The Barneys, the Bells. It's like young on young to see kind of what the growth and development has been with those position groups. And they have some very spirited competitions, right? And it happens daily in practice. So I'm watching those two position groups go head-to-head. I mean, Banks and Nair seeing, Tommy Hill and Gifford, like those are good quality matchups. I don't know how much we'll get isolated on Saturday with the top-end guys, but I want to see the development of the young guns in front of 65,000.
Well, a positive about the two groups you're looking at is they'll be going head-to-head, like you said, this weekend. And that brings me to something we heard a few weeks ago is they're chirping each other during practice. And they're getting into it. And I don't know if we've heard that from this team in a little while, unless maybe just they don't verbalize that that's what's going on. And I know that happens naturally in football, but how is that a healthy sign for you for a team right now?
I think so. And I go back to the consistency of the message. Remember Coach Rule, he kind of half jokingly said last year, if I tell these guys we're doing 10 up downs or whatever, or gassers or whatever they're doing, it's like moaning and groaning. But if I say, hey, first one to get 6 done, then they can run all day long.
Right.
Him finding that competitive balance and component, which is how they got the 3 teams, right? You want to compete? Let's all go. Compete. Yeah. Like I want to play to your strengths. So I think the competitiveness is really, really healthy because there's something on the line every day. Yeah. You're trying to win and lose. How many transactions do we have? Who gets the better team meal? It's very so you hear that. I was joking on the Husker Radio Network the other night where I said, I watched Tommy Hill make 2 plays in practice, and on the second one that he picked off, he rolled the ball back to the offense and said, knock that bleep off, right? Like, if that doesn't get you like if I'm on offense and I'm like, so the very next time somebody completes a pass, and it's like you get the first down, and I kind of like that. Because as long as flags aren't being thrown and you're being disciplined, it's a competitive sport and people talk. I said this the very first practice I went to. Somebody was asking me kind of what I felt, and I said it's hard to describe, but you can feel the intensity. It feels like a very competitive environment. Things are on a schedule. Yeah. Right? If it's 8:48 and they're finishing pre-practice, the first thing Coach Rule may say is, hey, how soon before that pre-practice horn sounds? And you may still have 3 or 4 minutes. But he just comes out ready to see where everybody's at doing work. Yeah.
And do you feel like, I'm going to get into the transfers here, do you feel like that's something from what you've seen at practice has been that competition or just the way that practice flows has been generated by the guys that have returned, or do you think those guys that have come in from the transfer portal and those guys they went out and got have fit right in and they like the way things are going? And I guess to piggyback off that, who are some of those transfers that you've seen in practice you're excited for?
I almost said he's been fortunate, but the outcome was intentional, right? He set the culture in such a way where, and he picks guys out of the portal that he thinks can best embody it.
Yep.
You have to be careful about guys you get out of the portal if they're disruptive to what you're already trying to do. And so for those guys, they seem to kind of just get into it right away. It's a very competitive environment, and I think they embrace that. And if you're new, you're forced to get on board if those aren't some of your natural skill sets, because it reveals itself in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been there, he has such a young roster in a lot of areas, so he kind of got to be the putty guy.
Yeah.
He could design and make the shape, and he's getting the best of both worlds, because then the older guys that he inherited, the Giffords, the Bullocks, the Ty Robinsons, they decide they like it so much they want to come back for round 2.
Right.
So he's getting the high-end experienced guys in.
Mm-hmm.
The younger guys don't know any better, and the new guys got to pee and get off the pot. But they have a little bit of an advantage, because I think they were very specific about guys they took out of the portal.
Yeah. And who are some of those you think on Saturday that might have people pick up on them quick?
So I think Banks and Nair are the easy choices offensively. I think Nair is a Sunday talent. He appears to be healthy.
Yeah.
He
did
makes
tell us that. He said he's been healthy.
He makes a lot of plays, and I think he felt good last year. I think Texas surprised him a little bit with what the playing time was told to him versus what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So he's motivated, because I think he felt good all along.
Yeah.
So he's gotten off to a good start. Dowdell will get some opportunities if he feels good, where he can kind of showcase what he brings to the table, which is in his interior running toughness. And defensively, Bly Hill. It'll be all eyes will be on Bly. He's not one of those guys, I think, that you can afford to let off the gas, even though he may be a potential starter, because I think he's still getting acclimated to Power 5 football and kind of the caliber of competition he's seeing. But Bly Hill is a guy that I think will grab some attention.
Yeah. And from a player perspective, you've been in a spring game before. How quickly does it humble you pretty quick to go out in a spring game and you see a full stadium for the first time for some of these young kids? Does that change their approach to what these past few Saturday scrimmages have looked like, or just what's that player perspective?
Yeah, well, it's vastly different.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 Saturdays you may have had, 250 people combined.
Right.
You'll get that in the pre part where you're not even putting on pads at 9:10 when you go to take your walk around in the stadium. Right. There will be a lot of people, and it's been built in such a way where Saturday should be a culmination of what happened the other 14 practices. And so there's this sense, this thing where you've been empowered to kind of free yourself of the pressure.
Yeah.
And go reward yourself for the opportunity.
Right.
That's kind of just how it's been built. Right.
Yeah.
Don't look at this as pressure.
Yeah.
That's a privilege. You get to go reward yourself for the work that you've put in these other 14 practices. So the quicker guys can embrace that, I think the better off they'll be.
Yeah. Coach said a few weeks ago, it's hard to be happy as a head coach with the offense is doing well, defense isn't. The defense is doing well, offense isn't. How do you think these coaches walk away on Saturday and say, okay, that was a positive product? What can they see that offers them some sort of benchmark?
So what you want to do is because I think both sides will tell you this.
Yeah.
If it's a 50-50 deal, there's a ball in the air, and offense makes a good play, I could see Coach Coop, Coach White saying, hey, listen, 50-50 ball in good position, I can live with that. You're going to give up a few plays. If it's on offense, and conversely, if it's a 50-50 ball and there's a good hand strip or a rake at the last minute, or you bat a ball away, then you tip your cap and you say, hey, I'm going to try to win more of those than I lose. What you don't want to see that can be a bad indicator are busts, right? If you're running inside zone and a guy hits his head on the goalpost, you don't want to say, hey, that's good offense, man, and go back pat a guy, right? Like. You got some things to shore up defensively. You don't want to turn a guy loose on pass rush and say, oh man, just a speedy edge rusher, right? So it's a very fine line between wanting balance. What you don't want to see is just busts. Yeah. Anything that's is the end result, you want it to be earned. And as long as you can make people earn it over and over again, it's very, very difficult to do in this sport. Just don't give up any cheapies. Yeah.
So the details are accounted for is kind of what I'm gathering there, which leads me to what we'll wrap it up with is last year when I know you were at practices, I was at practices, walking in, it was pretty immediate. You're like, wow, the coaching, the teaching is constant. The language, we've talked about that a lot. where it's crazy how in 1 year we've become accustomed to that. I walk in and I just expect that, and I just watch this well-oiled machine, and it's just what they do now. So on Saturday, something that's non-on-the-field football related, do you feel like there'll be noticeable things that you can say, that's a byproduct of what we've seen this coaching staff stand for?
Great question. I think there's two. One is football related, but it's off the field. The body types. When you take a look at guys like Tommy Hill or Emmett Johnson or Malcolm Hartzog.
Yeah.
You wait till you see Hartzog without his pads on. Like, physically, he has paid a price to put himself in position to play 12 games, right? So I think you'll be able to see the body types are vastly different. You're going to look at Jamari Butler and you're going to think, whoa, you look great last year. Yeah. He is so lean and ripped with these long arms. Like, he wants to be great. Remember, he led them in tackles for losses last year, and he came from out of not nowhere, but we almost were going to leave him for dead. Okay, now or never, Jamari. Like, what do we got? So you'll see that. The other thing that I think if you pay attention to it, watch the delivery amongst the coaching staff. Like, the standard is set where they expect the best out of each other. They're going to hold each other accountable, and it's totally modeled for the players, right? There's a certain level of intensity for these guys because you can't just have competitive players. You need competitive coaches too. So I think year 2, the second spring, you'll see a lot more of their personality and their competitiveness roll out because it won't be as surprising to the players. They're going to be like, oh, that's where we get it from.
Yeah.
Like, you got some – you have some very competitive coaches, and I think you'll see that.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for the spring preview. Should be a beautiful day in Lincoln. Excited to see a stadium full of red, and we're just one step closer to this fall season.